Oh, so so I wanted to ask you guys a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know. Okay, I wanted to know more about like the Coyotes currently practice at the ice den, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in Scottsdale.
Right. So how's like I'm just curious. How's that facility? Is it nice? Is it like
Oh,
and how's I wanted to speak to you, Richard. I know we spoke for a second about Gila River Arena. I want to talk to you about that a little bit more. Uh, Fill me in on that. Again, I'm not so familiar. I want to hear what your takes were on that.
Do you want me to take over the Gila talk, and Richard, you can get the Ice Den talk since you've been to Ice Den more, and I practically grew up in Jobbing.com arena.
sure. Yeah, I might chime in a little bit on the Gila. Also, I got to culture you here, Mark. The G is an H, so it's Gila. Gila. I know a lot of
Oh, it
people
is.
say Gila, and they also say Tempe, and it's Tempe. You say Tempe obviously correctly, but there's a couple. I believe those are. I think they derive from native words. I don't quote me on that, but they're very funky like that. That the G looks like a. You should be saying Gila, but it's Gila. Um, just to toss that out there. I'm not trying to insult you or anything like that. I'm just informing you. As
Yeah.
for
Oh,
as for Ice Den, Scottsdale, it is a beautiful facility. It's got two rinks. I think they want to expand to three, but I'm pretty sure it's just got two ice rinks right now, and it is top of the line. Like it was remodeled probably 10 years ago, somewhere around that time, and it's consistently been one of the probably prettiest smaller rinks in Arizona. North Scottsdale is pretty much the apex. It is the Beverly Hills. It's the of Arizona or of Phoenix, I should say. It is like your average income is $100,000 plus, and it is a beautiful arena, or not arena. I keep saying that beautiful rink, beautiful area. The biggest concern was recently the Coyotes publicly announced that they're going to be playing at that practice facility, and then right across from the small road, there would be all the workout areas and things like that where they're going to do their day-to-day business for the corporate side of it. A lot of people took insult to that. Once you've been there, you'll notice you're like, oh, okay, it makes total sense because there's literally the den, and then it's like major road, and then there's like a little sub baby road, like just like for your general parking traffic, and then on the other side of the general parking traffic road, there's the I'm assuming the corporate space that they want to take over. Yeah, that's a little obnoxious, but the walk is nothing. It's negligent at most. Arizona, we're not really a state that like bombards players. Obviously, we're well known for being like the place that older players go to like retire because they're not bombarded with media and people, coming up and asking them constantly. So the walk, you're not going to get like mauled by people. And then on top of that, it's Arizona. It's always beautiful here, especially in the wintertime. You're not walking out into the freezing tundra to cross, 200 feet of road. It's beautiful, sunny. You walk in barely anything to get to that workout facility.
Anything to add, Mark, or can I chime in a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I just found it funny because I think I know the buildings you're talking about because when you're pulling in, you can kind of see them kind of off behind, and then that's where all the players end up. They walk in on the rear side. So I think that would be the east side of the building or the south side. I'm terrible with directions. If I'm not next, or if I don't know where I am in relation to Gila River Arena, I don't know which way I'm pointing. For the most part,
It'd be the southwest side, I believe.
right, Southwest. So it's oh hey, all their workout equipment is going to be in office buildings. That's so pathetic. And I'm like, if anything, I mean, it should theoretically be like nicer with the air conditioning and everything. And again, it's temporary for a couple years because they'll also have that practice facility in Tempe when they're done. And then on top of that, just another side note, we've touched on it before. Even if Tempe falls through, allegedly, there's like two or three other cities that would love to have the Coyotes build there, and they're both right around the same vicinity anyway. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I just because Mark might help us reach a few more Canadians. I want to try to get the accurate information out there. I was there at that town hall meeting, and one of the council members said that it was an exact quote.
Hey,
So they're
Matt,
all
you were there. Matt, you were there for the 8 hours. You were
I
there for
wasn't
the
there
eight
for the whole eight
hours.
hours. I was listening to it at work. I got off work. I was like, hey, you know what? Let's see if we can make it over there. And I stayed for I think 3 hours, like all the way up until it ended. So I was there for as long as I possibly could, listening
That's
to the
very nice
vast
of you, man.
majority. It was a tiring night, and then I was like, I almost freaking bawled like a baby. I'm like, yes, we're finally one step closer to this team staying here. I am but a giant child. Anyway, and then I want to talk about just Gila River for a minute, because obviously I think it's going to be kind of cool for like the more chilled out atmosphere the Coyotes have anyway, to have them, their workout area essentially being that little office behind the ice den. But the ice den is also a lot better than the one that I went to growing up, the one in Peoria. That one is garbage. Just go to the one in Scottsdale, take the drive, whatever. Uh, I have a bit of a personal connection with that one too. So disclosure, I don't like that place. But Gila, man, I'm referring to it as Jobbing.com Arena because that's what I grew up, with it being called. I
Right.
love that building so much.
By
What's
the
up?
way, hey,
Go ahead.
sorry guys, sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to say, by the way,
Mhm.
uh, I think it was Richard that said I always remember Matt McConnell, and I remember Tyson Nash. They always say Gila River. They never say Gila.
I don't know
Just a
why.
side point.
We
Yeah.
don't. Matt McConnell and Tyson Nash don't know anything. Like they never have. They never will. Block me on Twitter again, you
They are
coward.
a. I think they're great. I love Tyson Nash. I think they're great announcers. I like them. I'm saying I don't know how they
Hey, I'm in the minority. I strongly dislike Tyson Nash. I guess I'll get into like a 30-second version of the story. So when my dad used to work at the arena, he got to talk to a lot of the players, media personnel, whatever. And when Keith Yandel was here, and good offensive player, terrible defensively, and the amount of times that Tyson Nash would just kind of hype up Keith Yandel all the time, even like trying to cover up for mistakes he made and everything. So my dad asked him one night, he's like, what do you do? Like, Keith Yandle's not that good. And the response from Tyson Nash was, who signs my paychecks? So I know Tyson Nash is just going to say whatever he thinks will appease whoever. So I don't respect him. And ever since I heard that, I'm like, I don't like him. And Matt McConnell, just kind of boring. That's about it.
right, right, right. Okay, listen. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's perfectly
I'm
fine. You
with
don't
you,
have to
Mark.
agree with me.
I'm chiming in here. I'm not as down on them as Matt is. He has his own personal beliefs, but as for the on production quality of them, I think they're pretty good. The only thing that I've noticed recently is Matt McConnell's eyesight has started to kind of degrade a little bit. I've noticed that he stumbles on numbers quite a bit, that you can very clearly see is like, it's not just like, oh, he misspoke. It's, oh, he thought this 6 was an 8, or he thought, this and that. So that's the only big knack that I have on Matt, is that he tends to get numbers a little bit more wrong, which means that also he gets kind of players wrong, which is, as for like a production standpoint, a little disappointing, because if you're like, he's had one or two calls where he's like, what an unreal goal by Connor Garland, and then it ends up being, Nick Schmaltz or so, just some random different player, and you're like, that kind of sucks, because that throws off the flow of sports broadcasting. But aside from that, I do like both of them. I think their synergy together is quite good.
Begrudgingly, I'll give them that. They do bounce off well with one another. And considering I am giving them any sort of compliment, that has to say something. But anyway, talking about Java.com Arena, right? I don't want to hear you guys praising these two anymore. It's time for me to show up anyway. So my dad started working there in like 2007, and I just the amount of times
What did your dad do there?
he worked conversion, so he got he would convert the ice surface to concerts and whatever, and he was
Oh,
one of
that's
the leads.
cool.
He wasn't the highest up, but he's one of the leads, and it was just I basically lived there. Like there are plenty, like I would go there to like print out like papers for school for years. I just go down to his little office. I was in on a lot of the inside jokes. Whatever. I got to play on the Coyotes ice for their full time Christmas parties. There was my favorite memory is ones I scored on Shane Doan. And I'm not going to elaborate on that because I don't want to embarrass Donor on the Shane Doan episode. But I've always loved that
That's
building,
very
and
cool.
for me,
That's very cool. You
West
ever met
Valley
the
kid.
players?
Oh yeah, I've met all of them. It got to the point where like I stopped getting starstruck after a while because I was so used to being around them, and then now I'm just back to being an awkward nobody. So it balanced itself back out as things tend to do. But I've always loved that building, and being a West Valley kid, I'm always used to kind of Wild West, I guess is the best way to say it. We're like more open space, it's a little less crowded. So it always felt awesome to have that arena on this side of town. It was an easier drive for me. So when I was a kid, you don't really think about the perspective of people that actually have the money that are way off on the other side of the state. It feels like, but the other side of the greater Phoenix area, and it's just always loved the building, loved the atmosphere. Didn't like how they couldn't fill it. And in the playoffs, the 2010, 2011, 2012 playoffs, man, those were electric atmospheres. I've seen that
Yep.
building sold out for home openers, important games, and whatnot, but the audience consistently was never there. And then I get older and I start realizing why. And it's sad because I love the building. I still think the building is nice. Unfortunately, they still use those little box TVs in the suites and everywhere because they haven't upgraded. But
I was
it's
I was gonna say that's what Mark was coming at me, questioning me before the pod was about like what how's the quality there, and specifically like how nice the arena is. And I was talking a little bit about how the upgrades are just not there because nobody spent the money to invest it.
And honestly, it's not really worth it because and again, this is primarily just so we have a little more of a Canadian audience. There were confirmed reports, from multiple sources. The city of Glendale wanted between a 15 and 20-year lease. That's probably why the Coyotes stopped paying to try to get them as a negotiating tactic to get them back to the table. Backfired. Now everyone looks bad. But if they would have signed anything longer than a 5-year extension while they're working with Tempe to try to build that arena, it just would not have worked because we have constant complaints we're not financially viable. The amount of money coming in
Right.
just isn't there because Footprint Center gets most of the concerts. For the longest time, it's a running joke, especially within arena employees, is that the Jobbing.com Arena, Gila River Arena, they get the sloppy seconds. They get the concerts when Footprint Center is all booked up, or for whatever odd reason they're like, yeah, we'll just go to this arena, but you lose a lot more shows than you would gain throughout. So
Well,
it's
Footprint's beautiful, eh?
yeah, I like
It's state of
It's
Footprint.
the
gotten
art, eh?
better.
It's
Hmm.
also the Snake Pit, the home of the Arizona Rattlers, the team that I don't care about anymore. I
But
totally don't care about them
Exactly.
anymore.
they put
Okay, let me ask you guys.
I was just gonna say
Let me
quickly they
ask you
put
guys if you don't mind.
oh
Go
Yeah,
ahead, go
sure.
ahead.
okay, I was gonna say they put $230 million into the Footprint Arena, which is where the Suns play, and it looks really good now. Yeah, they definitely put a lot into their investment and made it look really good.
Go ahead, Mark.
Right, yeah. Robbie, their owner doesn't love the Jays. Robbie Sarver. The Jays, excuse me, sorry. The Jays are just playing now. I'm a big Jays fan. I just got a notification on my phone. Not the Jays, the Suns. So the owner, Robbie Sarver, I don't think he loves the Coyotes. I've heard him say some negative comments in the past.
Right.
Um, yeah. Okay, anyway, I had two interesting questions for you guys. First of all, I want to talk about uh, Andrew Barroway. It's a two in
Yeah.
one question. So this is my last two questions I had for you guys, and I'm happy to move on after whatever you guys want to do. Andrew Barroway, the owner of the Yotes, I think when he bought them from the NHL in like 2011 or something, maybe a little bit later, and then
Mhm.
Marulo snagged him in 1920. So I had two questions on him. Do you believe? So Matt, you brought up a very interesting point of how the Coyotes they did not return their um, they use it as a negotiation tactic to not send their payments in, which is an interesting negotiation tactic, and I'm sure a lot of Canadians will just laugh at that. I myself have open ears because again, I have a biasness towards Arizona, so I do definitely hear that out. It's actually something I never thought of, and the logic kind of makes sense. My question is like this: do you believe that Andrew Barroway, as an owner, was a bad owner? Like, do you believe he didn't?
Yes.
Because again, under him, that's the short answer. But
I
under
don't
him,
I
like,
don't need
I have a long answer for that. So
go ahead.
okay, so I want to hear because I want to hear about the Andrew Barroway, Don Maloney, Dave Tippett era. Because
yes.
Dave Tippett's an excellent coach. I've always
Yeah.
liked him as a coach, and Don Maloney, I always thought was a good GM. That run 12 was a great run. It was, it was great.
Especially with
That
the
was great.
shoestring budget, Maloney. If Bill Armstrong pulls off the Cup run, he'll be the best GM in Coyotes history. But until that happens, with what Maloney managed to do, with no
Exactly.
budget, no
With nothing.
certainty, players looking at this market
Literally,
like we don't know if we're gonna be here in a year. Like it's
right.
impressive, and that man deserves an effing statue or a medal or an honorary something within this organization because
Exactly.
Don Maloney is a
So,
legend.
exactly. And I appreciate, Matt, I love all your side comments, and I appreciate that as well more. I wanted to share that reassurance how I felt. Because, again, I was a young kid. I'm an '03 born, so I'm 19. So
Mhm.
2012 for me is when I really got into the Yotes, when I really, like, that was the year, that run. When we lost to
Mhm.
the Kings in 6 games, the whiteouts, and then the Jets copied it from us again. But Jets
The
copied it
fake
when they went on
Jets.
their runs in 6. Yeah, listen, I have some love for them. They're a Canadian team. They're a good market. They sell out. Good fans, good people, and good players. So you gotta love that. But honestly, like I just wanted. Okay, so Don Maloney, like he had pennies on the dollar against other teams. And like you said, he pulled it off. But do you believe in Andrew Barroway? Do you believe? Do you believe he did purposely didn't update like Gila River Arena or whatever? I remember when it was called Jobby.com. Like, do you believe stuff like that happened on purpose? Do you believe he tried to screw over the team? I've heard different theories. Um, like I just, I've heard some of that. And yeah, and just one last thing before we move on. So just that on Andrew Barroway. And what and just another just one more point. What happened with the Yotes and the ASU multi-purpose facility that was proposed? I believe it was under Barroway. Was it
Yes,
2019? That was
I
supposed
think
to
it
be
was
the
like
new
17,
arena.
wasn't it?
it was
Or
It
17.
was
17.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah, it
sorry.
was in that area. No, it's fine. It's
I
fine.
thought it
It's
was
it's in
18
that
or 19.
area.
Whatever. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was 18 or 19. Whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Whatever happened to that? Those are my two
Okay.
questions for you. I think, and I want to hear Richard's point on Andrew Barroway because Matt, you filled me in nice on Maloney and Barroway. But
Mhm.
let me know your thoughts on the ASU multi-purpose arena with the Yotes because I was very excited because as we all know, the ASU the Sun Devils are a rising star program in NCAA. So we
Yeah.
love that, and the Sun Devils are my team in NCAA. I love them.
There we go.
So fill me in, please, fill me in.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you know
Give me
we
the
have
Matt,
the
knowledge.
answer, right?
I'll hand off the multi-purpose arena that was shot down previously to you. But for myself, I'll go over a little bit about Barroway. Quickly before I go over Barroway, I'm just going to say this about Maloney. I do appreciate all the trades that he made, some unbelievable trades with the budget that he had. The biggest knock that I had on him was that drafting players that were successful and also developing players that were successful did not happen very well under him. But you could make the argument that also could be because of the lack of money in development and scouting. Perfect, perfect knack or perfect argument back. But that was one of the biggest criticisms I had on Maloney. Next up is about Barroway, who was his owner for a short period of time. So, just to give a little bit of a backstory, the Coyotes were owned by the NHL. Shortly thereafter, a few, shall we say, rich people, but depending on who you ask, how rich they actually truly were in capital versus how rich they were in assets, was pretty differentiating, but they were bought by Ice Arizona, one of those owners being Barroway. Barroway goes and spends, I think, 51% to buy out the owners. He still is an owner of the Coyotes, so he's a minority owner still to this day.
What are the
So I don't want
2%?
to, yeah, I don't want to speak too ill just in case anything happens. But Barroway was a hedge fund guy. If you don't know what hedge funds are, it's where you take stocks and you manipulate the market. So there's this thing called day trading. There's also, I'm not going to get too boring into the stock talk, but essentially you can short stocks and stuff like that, which is where I look at AMC and go, I think they're going to do bad. And then I short them by saying they're going to go down. And I make money by saying that they're going to go down. And they do go down. There's a lot of that going on. And him being a part of that is very questionable because the thing is I don't deny that he had the money, but the thing is that when you have your money in assets versus having actual capital is two significantly different things. And by doing that, you saw he as an owner was, don't get me wrong, Chaika, the previous general manager, was pretty crafty with his thoughts. I don't think
Okay,
Maloney
so
ever.
Richard,
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but I was going to get to that next. That was the last point I
Okay.
remembered. I thought well, I want to get to Chaika for a minute after, but continue, please.
Okay. Okay. I'll hold off from Chaika.
Yeah,
So
hold on.
so for to finish up on Maloney, the biggest thing is I don't believe he actually had the capital to run this team, the actual money, and by doing so, I think that really hindered the team, and it was one of those tumbling domino effects where when you don't have the capital to take on the negative, the red, because the ownership now is like taking on the red, but to him it's no big deal because you can write that red off. So he's a billionaire. Let's say he makes 200 million on a casino. Well, he goes, well, I just lost 80 million on the Coyotes, and he can tack that onto his 200 million profit, and then all of a sudden he only has to pay 120 million dollars worth of tax money. That's how that works. If for listeners that don't understand, the problem with Barroway is he couldn't do that. He files for bankruptcy if that happens. So because of that, he had to cut corners in every single step possible. And by doing so, we got problems with the arena. We got Shane Doan not being allowed to make his decision whether he wants to sign or retire. Right? That was management. That was Barroway. He publicly went onto NHL's network to publicly apologize for axing Shane Doan, after all he's done for this organization.
Literally.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to sit here and insult Barroway and say, oh, he deserves to be, castrated, but the he did keep the team in Arizona and he wanted to keep them here. It was just one of those things where he was it's one like when you're desperate for money, you take anybody you can get. And if you let the loan shark in to give you money, you reap what you sow. And essentially that's kind of a little bit what happened.
And then because Richard's a lot nicer than me, yeah, I'll go ahead and say this right now. My thoughts are my own. My opinions are my own, not Richard's or the podcast. But I will talk ill about Barroway all day because of a lot of the things I've heard about him as a person, as well as when you have that big ownership group that came in, it was a bunch of people that just did not have the liquid capital. They didn't have the liquid money to just be able to do whatever they wanted with. And I was working at the arena at the time, so I was working for the parking lot department. I was working the lot that let all the owners in. They were all very nice, very good people. They just didn't have the funds. Then Barroway takes over, and I'm gonna go ahead and just contradict what Richard said. He didn't have the finances to actually run the team, like an actual capital, actual money to spend. He simply didn't. So that's why you saw, like Richard mentioned, a lot of the cuts, a lot of the shaving corners, a lot of the we're an NHL franchise, but we're probably better compared to an AHL franchise because that's how we were being run. So it's I have no problem saying again my own views. Yeah, I don't like Barroway. He essentially was the same type as Chaika, which I'll start off and then Richard can finish off with Chaika, but he's essentially a snake oil salesman. It's you have a decent pitch,
Right.
you might even be able to deliver on some of it. You might even be able to, but he was not
Right.
what we needed long term. However, Richard made an excellent point. He did keep the team here. For everything negative I could say
Exactly.
about him, he still, when we needed them to be here, he kept them here. So if he ever watches this, he already strongly dislikes me. That's fine. I don't care. But I will at least thank him for that and give him full credit there.
Exactly.
Now,
Okay, so
Shaika.
okay. So this is a whole nother this is a whole nother topic in itself.
Mhm.
Richard, I want to hear what you have to say, but I do want to ask you guys quickly. You can make it quick, no pressure. Just on what happened, the fallout with ASU Multipurpose Arena 2018.
All right, so this one, Richard might know the exact details, but here's how it was explained to me. So they wanted to go to business with ASU. ASU was interested. But given the fact that Barroway simply did not have the financing he said he did, there was a lot of shystiness with either the books or just how his business was ran. I forget which, I'll just say how it was ran as opposed to the books themselves, because I feel like saying the books might actually open us up to some bad speculation. So I'll just say with how it was ran. So ASU looks at that, they see a lot of uncertainty, and they're like, "We're not no." And then I remember hearing about this. I think I saw it in the newspaper. I didn't actually watch it, but there was like a press conference where the Coyotes were announcing all this stuff and how they wanted to do it, and no one from ASU was there. And then
Yep.
it had come out that ASU had exited all talks, and that's actually why they went into their multi-purpose arena in the first place, because they still wanted an arena for ASU, but the original plan was they wanted to share it with the Coyotes hockey and ASU hockey. And then I don't know if you heard the reports, but their talks came out that the ASU wants to use the Coyotes' new Tempe arena for the men and women's basketball instead of having to use Desert Financial Forum. So
Which is a
it
dump.
probably would have been the exact same thing. So I'm just going to assume it would have been the exact same thing what they wanted to do there, but yeah, now they want to do it here. So it just came down to, yeah, the financing wasn't there. ASU bowed out and said, "I'm not getting into bed with this individual." And then to me, that really should, once again, just a bigger audience watching this potentially, that really should give more confidence in Marullo actually having the funds, because ASU has already shown a history of not being willing to deal with Arizona Coyotes ownership that does not have the funds they say they do, and slash or was not running the business the way ASU was comfortable with bringing in a new partner.
Right, right. So, okay, so just to sum that up, pretty much, just from my understanding and take is that they just didn't have the cash flow and they didn't trust Barroway.